Last section of chapter 10. Word problems. We still have word problems, so they're just like 10.3. The only difference is now you have to draw the picture. They're not going to give it to you, but it's not that bad. So it says Yuritsa leans a 26-foot ladder up against a wall. If the ladder reaches 25.1 feet up the wall, what angle does it make? What angle does it form with the ground? Round to the nearest tenth. Now the good news is with trig word problems, it's always going to be a right triangle. Okay? So you don't have to worry about that. Now, like we labeled in the last section, here's the ladder, here's the wall, here's the ground. Okay? So the ladder is 26 feet. The ladder reaches 25.1 feet up the wall. What angle does the ladder form with the ground? We don't know. That's x. So we did these problems in 10.2. So let's use a different color here. So there's our angle. There's my hypotenuse. 25.1 is opposite the angle. So I do sine. Now again, I always put the angle after. Well, the angle in this case is x. Opposite, 25.1, hypotenuse, 26. Now remember, anytime we solve for the angle, we use the inverse. Okay? So we're doing inverse sine of 25.1 divided by 26. So trig sine negative 1, 25.1 divided by 26. Okay, so I get 74.88 because it says nearest tenth. 8 rounds this 8 up to 9. So the answer is 74.9 degrees because we're finding the angle. All right? So you just got to draw the triangle, that's all. Amelia leans an 18-foot ladder against a wall. If the ladder reaches 16.8 feet up the wall, what angle does it make with the wall? Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So, here's my right triangle, okay? Ladder, wall, ground. Okay? So the ladder's 18 feet. Actually, let me do this. Let's keep using different colors. That would probably be good. So the ladder is 18 feet. The ladder reaches 16.8 feet up the wall. So far it's the same as the last problem, but here's the thing. What angle does it means the ladder, make with the wall? So this is the angle that they're talking about. So x goes here now. Okay? So you got to read the problem. So the last problem, the angle was made from the ladder and the ground. This problem, it's the ladder and the wall that make the angle. So here's my angle. There's my hypotenuse. That's just scribble. That's terrible. Here's my hypotenuse. Now, 16.8 is now adjacent to x, so we use cosine. Okay, our angle is x. We don't know. That's what we're trying to find. Adjacent, 16.8, hypotenuse, 18. Well, x, then, since we're finding the angle, we're going to use the inverse cosine of 16.8 divided by 18. So, trig, cosine negative 1, 16.8 divided by 18. So I get 21.03 because it says nearest tenth. 3 does nothing. So 21.0 is just basically 21 degrees. So that's the angle that's made from the ladder and the wall. So be careful there. You got to read the problem. If a tree has a height of 135 feet, what would be the angle of elevation from level ground measured from 60 feet away? Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a degree. Okay. right triangle. Now, the tree. Well, the tree's right here. That's the vertical side. That's 135. Wait, hang on. No. Okay. Here's the ground. Okay. So it says, what would the elevation of... Well, first of all, let's change colors. Let's do that first. Okay. It says the tree is 135 feet tall. So here's 135. It says, what would be the angle of elevation? Well, the angle of elevation opens up. So that's where the angle of elevation goes. From level ground, measured from 60 feet away. Well, it's 60 feet away. So this point is 60 feet away from the base of the tree. Well, here's X. Hypotenuse. Oh, blank. Hypotenuse is blank. Automatic tangent. Okay. X is the angle measure. So 135 is across from X. And 60 is adjacent. So now, since we're finding the angle, we do the inverse tangent of 135 divided by 60. So trig tan negative 1, 135 divided by 60. So it's 66.03 because it says nearest tenth. 3 does nothing. Well, again, 66.0 is just 66 degrees. Okay? Now you notice we're finding the measure of the angles here. Okay, it's something to take a look at. All right, last one. Jeremiah wants to use a sheet of fiberboard 22 inches long to create a skateboard ramp with a height of 8 inches at its highest end. Find the angle of elevation made by the ramp with the ground. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. Okay, so here's our triangle. All right, so here's the ramp. Here's the ground. Okay, so now the fiberboard is 22 inches long to make the ramp. So the ramp is 22 inches. Okay, the height is 8 inches at its highest end. So height is always measured vertically. So that's 8. It says, what is the angle of elevation? Well, the angle of elevation goes right there. Okay. So, and the other thing is it said it's made by the ramp with the ground. So ramp, ground. That's where X goes. So here's your angle. Hypotenuse, 22. 8, opposite. So opposite over hypotenuse is sine. X is the angle again. Opposite is 8. Hypotenuse is 22. So we're going to do the inverse sine of 8 divided by 22. Okay. So trig button, sine negative 1. 8 divided by 22. So I get 21.32. Says nearest tenth. 2 does nothing. So 3 stays. So my answer is 23 or 21.3 degrees. So for these problems, not only are you drawing the triangle, but you got to find the angle now, not the missing side.